Chapter 12, Is the Brave New World Real? Quote, digital is a game changer, unquote. Ninian Wilson, Global Supply Chain Director and CEO, Vodafone Procurement Company. As a historian, I know that the future never plays out in the way we imagine, predict, or hope. So the question I always seek to answer in my research is whether what I'm talking about is real or fantasy. In other words, am I illuminating a path to a destination that's anchored in what we're capable of? Is this future supply chain built around third-party connectivity, efficiency, and excellence possible? The short answer is yes. Though the example is becoming cliché, Amazon is proof that this future vision is possible. Amazon over the years has built an amazingly robust, expansive, and data-driven company. In fact, as a logistics company, they're unparalleled in their ability to use data to influence third parties in support of delighting their customers. What they have done to fundamentally redesign fulfillment centers, transportation, computing infrastructure, technological development, workforce optimization, robotics, ESG, and a litany of other business operations is nothing short of exceptional. It may take a few decades to truly appreciate the genius behind Amazon's redefining of supply chain operations, which does not release them from any harm they have created. From a supply chain point of view, most legacy companies would be lucky to achieve a fraction of what Amazon has. In short, they built tomorrow's supply chain yesterday and have wielded it like Thor's hammer or Stormbreaker for MCU fans. There are plenty of books, case studies, interviews, and blog postings extolling the virtues of Amazon, and plenty of detractors as well. And I expect thousands more to be produced over the next 10 years. But for this study, I wanted to step out of the hype cycle that everybody quickly ascribes to Amazon and look beyond the easy answer. The question I ponder every night before I go to sleep is, can a 100-year-old company build a next-generation supply chain? And if so, what would it look like? Can a legacy company actually get out of its own way? Can the employees and the ways of working step beyond performance reviews, security audits, process redesign, executive approvals, legal compliance, document reviews, objectives and key results, annual planning, H1 and H2 planning, all hands, regional summits, reorgs, and corporate politics? Nearly all my clients spend most of their days in meetings, communicating and collaborating with one another. I often wonder when anybody has the time to do any work. Of course, this is probably why consultants get hired. Vodafone Procurement Company. As I was conceptualizing this book, Vodafone Procurement Company, VPC, reached out and asked me to comment on an initiative they were undertaking. They had scanned the market for a set of solutions to build their next-generation supply chain and came away unenthused about the market. They decided they would go ahead and build their own tool, so they wanted an independent sanity check. This is usually a good idea if you're going to bet your career on an idea that will cost your organization millions of dollars. We spent almost 90 minutes on the phone, and I was blown away by their scope and ambition. Afterward, I told them that I would like to follow up in 6 months. As it turned out, our next meeting brought me to their corporate headquarters in Luxembourg. This meeting convinced me beyond all doubt that I needed to feature VPC in this book, and led to a second trip 4 months later. Walking into the VPC offices, you'll notice two very tangible markers of a digital way of operating. First, the design of the offices is very inviting, egalitarian, and exudes modernity. Living in the shadow of Silicon Valley, I have seen a lot of startup spaces, and the VPC offices feel like they could be in downtown San Francisco or Santa Clara, minus the Lego bricks in the conference rooms and free meals. What struck me was that CEO Ninian Wilson and his team had built a culture of digital anchored by a strength in intelligence, tools, and people. They operate more as a 21st century digitally native company than the legacy company they formed out of. Intelligence. Located on level 3 of the offices sits the most functional architectural centerpiece I've seen in a corporate setting, a colossal 6-panel touchscreen measuring 140 centimeters by 420 centimeters, or 55 inches by 165 inches, the focus of the entire floor. Think of it as 6 panels, each 2 feet by 4 feet, all touchscreens. It's like a gigantic iPad. The screens display the key metrics, compliance, savings, health and safety, claims, payment days, shopping experience, necessary to run the business. Each chart, graph, or other indicator can be double-tapped to see the underlying data. Wilson conducts his key meetings around this board, giving him and his team the necessary situational awareness. It's important to note that it took them a long time to obtain all the data they needed to get this working properly. Even in the time between my trips, I noticed some key additions. There is complete agreement on the data that feeds all of their operations and business planning. That is a staggering statement considering that when Wilson took charge, individual teams hoarded data in silos, a situation most enterprises struggle with. He describes how it took many weeks to collect data in Excel, and by the time it was ready to show the business, it was out of date. Naturally, the business summarily dismissed it. By contrast, these days, if there's a question about data provenance or why something is showing as an outlier, they track it down and explain it on the spot. There's a collective mindset around using key performance indicators to improve the quality of data. This is a direct benefit on operational activities and management. There is no hiding behind bad data or middle management obfuscation. Each person I talked to showed a strong comfort with data, how to get it, and how to use it. As an example of how deep this capability goes, category management is the foundation of VPC's operations. The company is in the process of moving to an intelligence-based sourcing and category management. To achieve this aspiration, category managers are not only required to submit their strategies, but also to submit data plans that detail desired ways in which new data sources and enhancements could improve performance. The VPC team has been able to democratize data across the organization. The elusive data democratization and effective usage of said data is perhaps the most significant difference between the big tech companies, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Google, and traditional enterprises. Putting in a centralized analytics platform and visualizing the data on the fancy display wall changed the company's familiarity and attitude around both the data itself and the visualization of it. For proof of this change, Wilson looks at the analytics platform access logs to note that each day there's a spike between 8:45 a.m. and 9 a.m. from a supply chain point of view to the system as people are starting their days. Wilson is quick to point out that they're not doing enough in the realm of predictive insights and intelligence creation. However, they are among the most sophisticated procurement and supply chain organizations in terms of creating and operating in a culture of data. Moreover, they're embarking on an ambitious agenda. They're rolling out a new program where they're taking their ERP data and moving it to their underlying cloud infrastructure so they can mix it and match it with other data sources. This includes a program to get good at exchanging data with third parties to generate an advantage. As an example, VPC is procuring solar energy, as of this writing, by tapping into search data furnished by their cloud platform providers. They can incorporate the search data for the term solar panels and use it as part of a model to predict supply and demand of the solar energy market. In a business environment where price is no longer a differentiator, speed becomes a dependent variable. Wilson and his leadership team can measure how long each user spends in a tool, time spent setting up a template, running an event, the efficacy of a category blueprint, and the average time per project. All this data is sitting right there at the touch of a screen. Tools. Wilson is very pragmatic about what does and doesn't work in tooling. He and other leaders of his generation wear the scars from overhype, overpromise, and overinflated delusions of technical grandeur that failed spectacularly. As he notes, big bets on tooling lock you into multi-year, if not decades-long investments where changing course is next to impossible. For the VPC journey, they started with a strategic decision to build off a cloud platform. Next, they layered their legacy platforms, those with many years of depreciation left. Then they added a series of point solutions to give them the necessary functionality that the larger platforms lack. Having a cohesive and integrated technology stack gives them the ability to surface and exchange data across the entire supply chain and with their third parties in real time. That allows them to build control towers, and eventually digital twins, infused with real-time data and intelligence. This alone is a remarkable achievement and should be applauded. However, this is what they have already accomplished. What they are in the process of building will truly be spectacular. Once VPC had the proper cloud platform and digital tooling in place and good underlying data, the question of automation started to emerge. Could they start to automate their non-strategic sourcing and contract activities? Could they create an automated bot to evaluate suppliers, set up sourcing events, score tenders, sign contracts, and put them into the core systems? Thus, Ava was born. Ava is designed to be an automated, intelligent bot capable of executing sourcing events, RFPs, auctions, and so on, and contracting activities. The bot is architected to incorporate the category strategy, preferred suppliers, commercial models, while including supplier collaboration and stakeholder alignment. All of this will take place with little or no direct manual involvement from procurement. They've gone on to include other autonomous capabilities such as supplier discovery, data enrichment, and intelligent process orchestration, individually personalized unique user experiences created through generative AI. Regardless of how the Ava journey plays out, the entire organization will have learned a tremendous amount about what is possible and what is practical in terms of automating supply chain and procurement activities. By taking this journey, they're positioned to embrace the power of generative AI because they possess the foundational platforms, point solutions, and data. People. In my interview with Wilson, he made 3 comments that struck me as the essence of being a good digital leader. First, he wants to be at the leading edge for himself. He wants to be surrounded by smart people doing cool things with digital so he can learn and benefit from it. This sounds so obvious, and yet VPC is among a very select few operating like this. Second, he loves it when one can take data and visualize it. That comment was laced with intellectual curiosity. It's easy to imagine Wilson's excitement when people bring new data sources or insights to him. Third, failure is embraced, not punished. Written on the company coffee mugs is the message, quote, "It's not okay to make mistakes," unquote, with not being crossed out. This sets for employees a cultural tone of exploration and endeavor, where the journey is as important as the destination. The most important person in the room. I sat in on various meetings throughout my time at VPC. However, I was struck by a particular moment during a random development meeting for the Ava Autonomous Procurement Project. The meeting participants consisted of developers and business users jointly designing the solution. At one point, both teams got stuck, and the developers became fixated on the technical capabilities and limitations. Meanwhile, the business users were getting confused and quickly losing interest in the technical minutiae. This lack of understanding is exactly where internal development projects rotate off their axis and begin a slow trajectory to crash and burn. Alas, that did not happen because a gentleman by the name of Sabi Rosales, the business architect at the time, interjected and righted the ship. He did a masterful job holding space for the technical team while translating the technical issues into business-friendly language. This technical to business, and reverse, translator was the most important person that day and for just about every other successful corporate development project. As you might expect, these people are hard to find because they have a highly developed understanding of the business, technical acumen, and the ability to relate to multiple audiences simultaneously. Watching Rosales successfully steer the project in that small moment made me wonder how many instances like that has he mediated or will successfully mediate over the course of the project. In my experience and through observations of corporate digital initiatives, far too often enterprises substitute non-technical project managers in lieu of highly skilled translators like Rosales. Predictably, this leads to much management activity with very little technical success. This is because without the finely attenuated technical mediation, the non-technical business users quickly get overwhelmed under the fusillade of jargon and quiet quit the project. This opens the way for the technical people to push through what is the most expedient solution so they can complete their milestones. All the while, the project manager is dutifully checking off milestones on the Gantt chart, blissfully unaware that the initiative has derailed. The net result is a subpar solution that has little relevance to the business and certainly will never be confused for transformational. Of course, the challenge is to find more people like Rosales who have these unique and eclectic skills. Finding them may be hard, but not as impossible as it once was now that we have several generations of people working for the big tech companies that have matriculated into the corporate workforce. The key is to attract them by giving them autonomy and cool tools. As Wilson points out, if you don't invest in these resources and make them feel loved, they won't sign on or stay. Final observations. I left Luxembourg moved by 3 observations. First, thinking back to the deficit perspective applied to procurement, as noted in Chapter 10, that accuses supply chain practitioners who don't have the data, are hard to work with, and implicitly need consultants and tech providers. Looking at what VPC has achieved, it's clear that most perceptions of practitioners are outdated and wrong. Wilson and his team are not dependent on consultants or tech software providers to run their business successfully. This allows them to choose when and where they bring in outside help versus being dependent on it. This has the advantage of setting up mutually beneficial tech partnerships, for example, with their cloud provider. VPC is not scared of failure. Wilson has set an ambitious digital agenda and makes it clear that failure is an important learning tool. When failures occur, he and the team weather them together. Finally, just to demonstrate how prepared the folks at VPC are for the boom, I was sitting alone in the conference room when the fire alarm went off. This was not a planned test. I was unsure what to do, and my shock at the situation kicked in. Definitely not my best moment. I peeked out the door down the hallway, and it was empty. Everyone had exited the building. After a few moments of hesitation, I grabbed my phone and jacket to make my way out. Just then, 2 people from Rosales' team came to collect me. They had the situational awareness, both to know that I was in the building and to ensure I got out. I was touched and impressed by this act. When the boom occurs, how do people respond? In this case, the fire alarm turned out to be a malfunction, but it showed exactly how people who are prepared act in moments of crisis. This is an apt metaphor for how VPC approaches business. Sidebar: the Teardown Lab. I spent my day in a corner office room at the VPC headquarters. In the next room was their Teardown Lab. While interviewing this team was not my objective, I was treated to an in-depth discussion with the 2 people who created and run this capability. The pessimist in me was initially underwhelmed by this prospect. Seems like everyone has a Teardown Lab. Even Carney does. After about an hour with them, I realized that having a Teardown Lab built into the company's fabric allowed for insights to be piped directly to the category managers, who can use the information to adjust or inform category management strategies. Connecting the engineers to the category managers and the business has a very noticeable effect in creating comfort with data, technology, and business need. In short, this duo described how they were using tools and intelligence to change how VPC people operated. In the early days, it took them 2 to 3 weeks to do a printed circuit board cost breakdown, which required using an actual magnifying glass to read the individual embedded components. Now they have a very sophisticated scanner that digitizes and tracks all the components, building a bottom-up bill of materials. This database of products and commodities allows them to track changes over time. Also, it gives them the ability to track the evolution of technological changes and new manufacturing techniques. Most importantly, when suppliers increase costs in response to market changes, say the price of memory spikes, they can quickly validate if this is a legitimate increase. This is directly actionable data. It also gives the category managers and VPC the leverage to look at remanufacturing particular products with a contract manufacturer. Moreover, all of this data at their fingertips gives them interesting insights into ESG and risk. They showed me a recently torn down router that was supposedly made in Ireland, but upon closer inspection, the router had American chips manufactured in China, assembled in Germany, and sent to Ireland for final assembly. Lots of ESG overhead for that router, not to mention risk. This allows VPC greater visibility into a product's provenance, something that the collection of third parties may not be willing or able to share. Hacking corporate culture: 5 takeaways to VPC's digital success. 1. Hire the right people, give them the autonomy, cool tools, and get out of the way. 2. Investing in digital conveys love and appreciation, and if you don't, then the talent won't stay. 3. Hire people with the intention that they'll be so successful they'll go to Google in 3 years. This is a win. 4. Ensure you have the most important person present in the room. 5. embrace mistakes and failure.